Presentation of Dialogue on Idaho Public Television is made possible through the generous support of the Laura Moore Cunningham Foundation, committed to fulfilling the Moore family's legacy of building the great state of Idaho.
Coming up, we often celebrate our senses of sight, sound, and taste. But what about our sense of smell? For my guest today, it was scent that transformed her life. A conversation with Boise native and author Elisa Herod next on Dialogue. Stay tuned. Hello and welcome to Dialogue. I'm Marcia Franklin. We talk a lot about how things look, sound, and taste, but many scientists believe smell is the most powerful of our senses, directly linking to the parts of the brain that process emotion and memory. And for my guest today, discovering the world of scent definitely changed her life. Boise native Elisa Herod was living in Austin, Texas, and working in a series of unfulfilling jobs when she stumbled across the world of perfume blogs. She soon found herself ordering fragrances through the mail and then immersing herself in the history, science, and sensations of scent. As Herod's passion with perfume grew, so too did her own self-confidence. She would go on to chronicle her olfactory journey in her first book, Coming to My Senses. I talked with Herod about her memoir when she visited Boise. I started by asking her how she chose the book's name. What about the title, Coming to My Senses? I mean, obviously, it relates to perfume because of the senses, but Coming to My Senses relates to something that happened interior to yourself once you discovered perfume. Talk a little bit about the title.
Sure. Well, I wanted to give it that title because for me this book is about so much more than perfume. It's really about a kind of waking up that I think a lot of us have to do at some point in our lives, or maybe even have to do on a regular basis. It's so easy to get caught in one mode, just kind of keeping up with your daily life, and think that you know who you are and think that you know what's possible. So I was so surprised to be falling in love with perfume that it made me think, well, what else is out there? What else don't I know about? Maybe all these other things I thought weren't possible, like writing a book, might be possible.
So for discovering perfume opened up many worlds for you?
Yeah, not even just the perfume itself, but the surprise of perfume. You know, I did so many things because I fell for perfume that I never would have done. I went places I never would have gone. I talked to people I never would have talked to. So then it wasn't that big of a leap to think, well, maybe I can try to get an agent. Maybe I actually can be a writer. You know, all these other crazy things have happened to me. Why not give it a shot?
Now, you write, and I think very humorously, about how there's a certain guilt complex among some people, including yourself, about liking perfume in the first place, or discovering it and finding that you like it. Almost that, well, that's something for mom and grandmom, and it's a luxury item.
Yes.
And you write that it was kind of in the closet, so to speak.
It was
literally
in my
you
closet.
stored perfume in the closet, but also figuratively that you didn't want to tell anybody that you had this growing obsession with perfume.
Yes, I didn't even want to tell myself for the first 3 months. So I was sort of, oh, you know, I'm just a little bored with this freelance work I'm doing, and I'm just going to check out that blog and stay on there for 3 hours, you know. And then I was sort of afraid to tell my friends because I was an academic and kind of an activist, and Austin's a very granola kind of town. Perfume was really something I associated with a kind of femininity that I didn't think I had access to, and that both frightened me and that my friends and I sort of made fun of or didn't approve of in some subtle way. I think being scared and feeling contempt often go hand in hand. And actually, that turned out to be something that I really needed a little bit of in my life, and that was connected to all kinds of things like creativity that I didn't think it would be connected to.
Your book talks about the relationship between your growing love of perfume and feminism. Talk a little bit more about that, because perfume is one of those things, again, that has been kind of quelched a little bit over the last 20, 25 years.
Yeah.
Partly because the perfumeries themselves didn't want to talk too much about the recipes and everything, but also related to the development of feminism.
Sure. Well, I think there was a certain kind of high femininity. Like I always think of drag queens as the ultimate end of the spectrum, you know, the high heels and the big hair and perfect makeup that came under suspicion when feminism first came in, because it was seen as a trap and it was seen as something that women had to do. And some women, like me, have kind of kept thinking that without really examining what it might mean for them. But I think that feminism can also be a way to look more closely at anything that gets dismissed as too girly or too feminine, because usually there's some kind of power there. If things are getting dismissed, if they're getting shunted to one side, you can bet that there's a story there.
And cooking was one of those things
Yes.
that was relegated for a while because of feminism to, you know, drudgery.
Right.
But that's had a renaissance.
Exactly. And so I just see things like perfume and makeup as these wonderful sensual playthings that are just there to be reclaimed.
Kind of expensive for some people, although you point out in your book that it doesn't have to be that way.
Yeah, perfume is so odd that way. It's definitely a high-end luxury product, but it's also available for free on every department store counter. So I actually had an interview with the head of Viking, and she told me this fabulous story that I've heard from other people about being 16 in New Jersey and broke, and how she and her girlfriends on date night would go to the most expensive department store in town and just drench themselves with perfume and then leave. It's this thing that they keep trying to keep in the bottle and at the counter, and it just sort of keeps escaping. You know, it keeps being a little bit bigger than itself.
Well, we'll talk a little bit more about this in the Web Extra.
Sure.
But people can also order samples, which is something that I didn't realize until I read your book, and there's all sorts of swapping that goes along.
Yeah.
I want to talk to you as a writer. The vocabulary for describing scent, it's difficult, isn't it? I mean, it's mostly metaphor and simile. It's comparison. Smells like X. But if somebody hasn't smelled a lilac before, that may not work for them. So describing scent can be challenging.
Yeah, scent doesn't have in our culture its own vocabulary the way that the other senses do. So we say something is loud or soft, or we talk about different textures and colors and tastes, but we really don't have words for smells unless you're in a specialized profession like perfume or wine or tea. So you have to raid and colonize the language for all the other senses. And that's actually a lot of fun.
Such as?
Well, I describe the scent of lemon as a high singing scent. So you get that brightness, and it's a tone. A lot of scents are compared to music, because that's the other invisible thing that we all know. Or you can talk about something as being musky and rooty and loamy, so you get that feeling of an animal in the forest. Or you can talk about scent being shadowed, or I often talk about a place. So I talk about how I was disappointed in powdery violet perfumes because it made me feel like I'd walked backstage at the Ziegfeld Follies and was choking on face powder. And even if you don't even really know what the Follies are, you know what it's like to choke on powder, and you can imagine that.
Another thing I found interesting in your book was the science of perfume. And I know you don't want to feel like you're boring people with it, but we should just say that perfume is often made out of some very strange things,
Yes.
which I didn't realize. Rotting things in particular can actually make good sense.
It's a mixture of natural and synthetic ingredients, and has been since 1895. But the ancient perfume was made out of all kinds of things. People were always, perfume is about making an archive of smells in the world. So people were always looking for a way to extend their lives. And in the search for that, they used a lot of animalic materials like ambergris, which is basically sperm whale spit up. They eat a lot of cuttlefish, and then they coat them in their stomach with this substance, and then they throw up the cuttlefish, and it floats in the ocean, maturing, and then it washes up on shore, and it's this big greasy gray lump. And if you take a small amount of that and you make a tincture, it becomes this salty, fleshy veil that warms up and extends the scent of everything that it touches. And who knew who found that out first? I don't know. We don't know that part.
And speaking of natural scents, you do talk in your book a little bit about the controversy between natural perfumers and their disdain sometimes for perfume nowadays, which has synthetic, is that the right way to put it?
Yeah, things that are either extracted or created in a lab. A lot of people feel strongly about this. They think they want natural perfumery because it might be safer or more real somehow. It's often gentler. It smells completely different. It's very, very expensive because you're using natural ingredients that are often very rare. So sometimes you're harming the environment. It's kind of complicated. But yeah, there's just in the same way that there's been farmers markets and a whole movement towards organic and green things, there is also a movement of perfumers who feel more connected to the palette of natural materials. They just find their artistry there.
And you like both. You don't come down on any...
I am a greedy hedonist, and I want as much good art as possible. So if you are somebody like Mandy Aftel, who feels connected to natural materials, I'm all for that. If you are only given pennies on the pound for your budget and you're trying to create art out of that, I want you to have access to whatever, I just want good perfume.
You do perfume consultations for people for fun on the side. And when you had your bridal shower,
yes.
your Boise aunties,
yes.
the ladies that had watched you grow up, brought you perfume, which actually is, I found, a very poignant part of your book, because there was an opening that happened, an emotional opening for them as well. They dug through their drawers, maybe found things that were quite old and gave them to you. But also, when they tried them on and when you do the perfume consultations, something happens, doesn't
yes,
it? Even for people who are a little bit skeptical.
Yes, it does. I mean, scent is just the fastest way to memory and emotion. We're not built to resist it. That's partly why we have such strong reactions against it. Scent is one of the only senses that goes directly from the outside to the inside of your brain, and it bypasses your frontal cortex. You don't form any language around it before you have a reaction to it, which if you're running from a fire is a good thing. But out in the world, it just means that we are just blown away by either, something that nauseates us or something that might remind us of our grandfather's shed full of citrus fruit, or that brings us back to junior high, when we're...
No, I don't think so.
Oh, it can happen. I've seen it happen.
Right, I don't know if you want it to happen, though.
But that's what makes it powerful.
Right.
It's kind of like what we were talking about before with the feminism and looking more closely at these things. People have whenever there's a strong reaction to something, you can tell there's power and emotion there. Yeah.
For the uninitiated, somebody who doesn't think that they're interested in perfume, first, why might you suggest that they try it?
Oh, I'm not sure I would. But I would definitely suggest that they start paying attention to the smells in their everyday world. And I would definitely encourage them to daydream about their scent memories, because I think that's a wonderful source of power and creativity and emotion for most people. And it's sort of like thinking that you were seeing the world in color and finding out that you saw it in black and white, because once you start paying attention to that stuff, there's just so much beauty. And then perfume is just the art form of that beauty. You know, it's what we do with smells to create art is perfume.
So if somebody does want to try to learn more about perfume, what's the best way to start going about it? Because they could they just go to stores and start spritzing a little bit?
They could.
Or when I was reading your book,
I
there
find
seemed
that
to be
the scariest part of perfume, going to the stores,
mall.
because unfortunately, perfume has kind of a suicidal business model, so they're more likely to just push whatever's new on you and not really know a lot about perfume. I mean, they could read the book and then they would know about the community and resources that are available to them. But if you are just going to go out and start sniffing, I would go to Sephora or Nordstrom's if you have one near you, because both of those places are trained to give you samples and also to leave you alone. And the people at Nordstrom's are actually really knowledgeable. They get really good training. They're not attached to the brands, so they're not there to push things on you.
And as you say, if they want to read the book, they can learn more about this. But in general, there's a whole kind of subculture of getting samples online and even trading with each other, decanting perfumes.
Yes.
And a kind of a gifting culture.
It's definitely
perfume.
a gift culture, yes. What if you fall down the rabbit hole and you don't have a lot of money, which most of us don't, and you don't want to buy full bottles, you just want to smell as much as you can. And so there are blogs and there are forums where people are reviewing these perfumes and describing them in glowing terms that make you want to die to smell them, and that's called having a lemming. So you want to go over the cliff with the rest of the crowd. And then you can go to a forum like Makeup Alley and have a wish list. And then the people who bought a bottle and maybe don't like it or are trying to recoup their investment will offer to either sell or trade small amounts of their perfume with you. And you can also just order samples from a place like Lucky Scent or Beauty Habit. There are these online boutiques with niche perfumes that don't show up at the beauty counters. But that are really wonderful.
And is there a place for men doing this as well?
All of this is for men as well. Once you get away from the department stores, perfume is genderless. The only thing gendered about the perfume is the bottle. And so there are lots of fair amount of men in our little fan culture. And some of them are straight.
And in other cultures, there's not the stigma that exists in the United States around men wearing perfume. Is that right?
In the Middle East, which has a huge history in perfume and perfumery, it used to be a tradition for men to go to the souk, and there would be a stall in the souk where you could get your own perfumes blended. And it was sort of like going to the sports bar is here. You know, it'd be like a guy and his buddies, and they'd go and they'd smell some things, and they'd mix up a little something for the next week. And it was completely macho. Yeah.
Trying on perfume just opens up the senses, or even thinking about scents. And one of the books that you'd like to recommend that folks read is called A Natural History of the Senses by Diane Ackerman, who also wrote 100 Names for Love about her husband, which was nominated for a Pulitzer Prize, finalist for a Pulitzer Prize. Tell us why you like this book, and I believe you read it as you were preparing your own book.
Yes, well, I read it long before I ever fell for perfume, and then I went back to it when I became obsessed, and then I read it again, along with a lot more of Ackerman's work as I was preparing to write the book. Natural History of the Senses came out in 1991, and I still see the chapter on smell cited everywhere by perfumers, by people writing about scent, by people writing about memory. It's just one of the most beautiful and also scientific. It's a really wonderful translation of scientific literature on smell.
And she writes about all the senses in the book.
She does. Yes, she does. And since perfume was really a gateway for me to learn and kind of wake up in general to being in my body and being in the world, I just, her generosity and her sense of lyricism is just completely infectious. It will make you want to wake up in the morning.
Another sense, obviously, is a taste, and you're recommending The Gastronomical Me by the classic writer M.F.K. Fisher.
Yes, M.F.K. Fisher is the grande dame of all food writers, but I feel she's so much more. I really think that anyone who writes about coming to their senses or writes about sensuality or loneliness or growing up or coming into themselves just has to read this book.
It's about her coming to Paris, right?
Yes, it's about her marriages. There was more than one. And it traces her growing up years and then her years in France and the years that she spent becoming a writer, really.
And tasting.
And tasting.
French food.
Oh, yes. There's a lot of tasting and there's a lot of gorgeous descriptions of food. But there's also a lot of descriptions of traveling alone, these private little moments. One of the most famous moments in this book is she's alone in this apartment because her husband's out and she's kind of an abandoned young wife at this point. And this sensual pleasure that she gives herself is to peel a tangerine and heat up the sections on the radiator and then put them out on the ledge of the window in the snow so that the skin crackles and the inside is kind of warm and the outside is kind of crispy. And it's just this, it's one of those things that you wouldn't tell anybody about if you did. And I think we all have these private lives of pleasure that are our most tender places sometimes, and she's the master of that.
Well, another book about food, but also set in a place and a time, is called Day of Honey, a memoir of food, love, and war.
Yes.
And I'm going to mispronounce the
Ania
woman's name.
Thank you. I think.
Yes. But
Sorry,
she was a special correspondent for the Christian Science Monitor in Baghdad and also the New Republic magazine in Beirut. And she writes about food in Iraq, food in the Middle East.
Yes.
Set in this time of war.
Yes, that's her lens for talking about how people survive war and trauma and what connects people, what keeps them going. She has this wonderful line. I really struggled as someone who really cares about the world, and I wrote my dissertation on trauma, and then here I was writing about perfume, and I worried that I was being escapist, that I was withdrawing from the world. And here is someone who is really taking that on. She's saying pleasure in the time of war is just as valid a lens, maybe even a better one, to understand the experiences of people on the ground as any kind of reporting on the front lines. She says, other people saw more, wrote more, risked more, but I ate more.
Well, that's how you get to know people, too.
Exactly.
And then finally, you'd like to recommend a memoir. Your book is a memoir, and this is, too, an exact replica of A Figment of My Imagination by Elizabeth McCracken.
Yes, this is a stunning memoir about a very sad subject, the stillbirth of Elizabeth McCracken's child. But she calls it the saddest story in the world with a happy ending, because she does have another child, and she begins the story with the baby in her lap. So you sort of have this, she prepares you, and I think that memoir has gotten a really bad rap. In recent years, people think there are too many of them. They complain about them being self-indulgent or just being these confessions of misery. And this is really an example of memoir, what memoir can do, what that form can do, can tell you this stunning story in such an intimate voice that you can't look away, and you have to really understand what she's talking about. And she's also very, very funny, even when she's telling that sad story.
And you had humor in yours as well. That's got to be an important component of memoir.
Oh, yeah.
The ability to laugh at yourself.
Otherwise, you just become pompous and unbearable, I mean, I think the point of memoir is that someone is talking to you. And so, to me, the point of memoir is to be as intimate as possible with a reader. It's the form that allows you to do that, to pretend that you are sitting quite close to someone, maybe with some wine, and just talking. So
you mentioned that you come from academia, and writing a book about perfume was one of the last things that you thought you might do. But now that you have, and now that you've written a book,
yes.
What do you suppose might be coming up next for you? I know you want to do some more research on perfume, maybe travel and see how it's connected to politics and geography.
Yeah.
But there are other things that you'd like to do as well. Yes?
Yeah, I actually think I might write more about the senses rather than about perfume itself. Since I'm officially a failed academic. I have a PhD and I did get a job, and that's why I had the free time to get obsessed with these blogs and become a writer. And I'm so happy about that path change. So now that I'm a writer, and now that I'm someone who thinks about the senses a lot, I've been thinking about things like sound, music, and its place in my life, and also some other maybe smaller projects before I get to a big book.
And the next big book, you don't know?
I don't know yet.
Okay. But you want to write, you want to keep writing.
Oh, I'm going to keep writing, yeah. I mean, this is the only thing that's worked out for me so far. It seems to be going pretty well.
Well, you got married too, and that's going well. So.
No, I mean professionally.
Okay.
And it happened so fast. I mean, the first major...
I hear that from a lot of authors.
Yeah, the first major magazine piece I wrote was for O Magazine, so I guess I should stay in this field.
Well, again, many congratulations.
Thank you.
And welcome back to Boise, even for a brief time. We hope for your next book you'll come back again.
Oh, I hope so. Thank you.
Thank you. You've been listening to an interview with Boise native and author Elisa Herod about her book, Coming to My Senses. For more information, check out our website at idahoptv.org. Just click on Dialogue. And we're on Facebook and Twitter, too. For Dialogue, I'm Marcia Franklin. Thanks for tuning in. Want to learn more about the science and seduction of scent, including how to pick out a perfume for yourself or a friend? Check out my special web extra with Elisa Herod.
A lot of modern perfumes will just kind of come at you all at once because they know you don't have patience to stand by the counter and wait. But never buy a perfume in the first 15 minutes because that's where all the money is. Go away, go have lunch. An hour later, if it doesn't annoy you, then you can go back to the counter and buy it.
You'll find the web extra on our video player. Just go to idahoptv.org and click on Dialogue.
Presentation of Dialogue on Idaho Public Television is made possible through the generous support of the Laura Moore Cunningham Foundation, committed to fulfilling the Moore family's legacy of building the great state of Idaho. Check out our website, become a friend on Facebook, or follow us on Twitter.